Hello. To those of you who are working, I'm okay with that. It's all right. Right, so this is not a technical presentation by far. So we're talking about pricing today. And yeah, I'm going to start it off with this. It's a quote directly from the App Store. And yeah, we've seen it happen many times. Amazing app, changed my life, use it every day. But when somebody asked me to pay for it, no, 1 star, sorry. So in my eyes, it's a pretty great sign for you as a developer if that's your situation as well. Because you built something that somebody is so passionate about that they're going to rant about it and give you like all of this attention. So great software, building it takes a lot of time, updates, people, customer support. Somehow in this age of free everything, charging actually money still feels like a betrayal in some cases, right, to some people. So last year we did a competition on Twitter where we asked app developers to share their 1-star reviews, and we got lots of ones like this one. So I think it helps just knowing that you're not alone, right? Speaking of not being alone, there are about 7 billion people with access to a smartphone this year, and it's increasing 5% every year. So lots of more people using smartphones, and meanwhile, constraints to launching your own app are less than ever, right? So we have more apps, more people, and there are still lots of apps that are not charging anything, right? So this grid represents subscription app downloads last year. So imagine this like being all of the downloads that happened last year that had subscriptions in them. Then we end up here. So out of all of those apps that were downloaded, all of those downloads, 6% of them resulted in successful commitments from users, so trial starts. So somebody is willing to maybe pay for it at some point, and they've already shared their card details and all of that, so that's already a good step, right? But that's only 6% of all of the downloads. If you're thinking about payment, that's 2% of all downloads, meaning all of the apps that were downloaded and resulted in a paid conversion or subscription. And this is a droidcon, so if you're on Google, that's 1%. And yeah, this may sound a bit like a doomsday scenario, but I'm not here to discourage you about this. My mission here is just to inspire and share some ideas about how monetization can work. And yeah, we could spend all the time speaking about pricing and how much to charge users. We can do that at some point later maybe, but in this session I want to talk about something that may help you just get ideas. In many cases trial promotions or any introductory offers, they happen on first app open, and app developers are embracing that hard monetization, so ask money right away. And what we see here is on purpose small. So on the left side for you, we have trial starts in time, and on the right side we have cancellations in time. So as we see, most trial starts happen on day 0, so as soon as users download the app. But then meanwhile, most cancellations happen within 1 or 2 days from trial start. So as we see, most of the app developers are capturing revenue early, but is that a right thing to do? Maybe you're losing out on some users who may end up converting later on? Not sure, right? We think about these questions quite a lot at RevenueCat whenever we get screens. Let me try to reconnect, maybe that'll work. Nope, didn't work. Anyway, yeah, so I can talk about what we do and where we get this information. So this information and all the stats I shared earlier and later in this presentation, they come from RevenueCat. And at RevenueCat, we are a solution, an SDK that works with in-app purchases and mostly subscriptions. So we have access to 80,000 apps who are connected to us and more and counting. And we help app developers organize data and make sense of it. But meanwhile, we also get our hands on all of that data and we're able to provide these benchmarks. So all of the information comes from those benchmarks. So in case you're curious about this data and you don't need to take notes, I will have a QR code of that report from 2024, which you can keep using. Yeah, so since we have all of that data, how much should you charge per subscription and when should you display the paywall? The answer is depends. Thank you. No, but seriously, instead of leaving you with that, I'm going to kind of jump through some areas that I want to kind of speak about. So when we speak about subscriptions, I think what makes sense, and especially if you're planning to start charging users, it really makes sense to think about context. So pricing, how much to charge, when to charge, comes later. So we're going to speak about context. And for that, I'm going to focus on 3 abbreviations. So TAM, SAM, SOM. Pretty cool. So these are specific abbreviations that many developers use, and especially business owners kind of reside on them when making decisions. And I think this will help us define the context. So what are these in general? So total addressable market, that's if we think about 7 billion smartphone users, I have an app for growing plants. Okay, so how many people am I possibly going to be able to get to, right? So that would be probably all of those people who are interested in growing plants. Maybe that's going to be like 10%, maybe less than that, right? So that's going to be my total addressable market. This is great, but that doesn't speak too much to me, right? So I have all of these users who might not end up paying for an app or maybe not using an app in general. So TAM is really great for evaluating investments. If you're pitching, that's maybe something like a good KPI. But the next one I want to focus on is serviceable addressable market. So out of that total addressable market, how much you're able to service. So that will be languages, platforms, things like that. So if I have my app, which is made for indoor plants, and it's in English, Spanish, and French, maybe that's 30% of my TAM, right? Great. That helps me figure out how much of a market I'm able to address at some point, if I'm lucky. And then the third one that we sometimes use is SOM, which is serviceable obtainable market. So how much of that addressable market I may be able to obtain if I tried hard and things got really in my favor, basically. So how many users you can acquire, considering the competition, economy, available technology, and so on and so forth. SOM is great, but it can be a bit short-sighted because things change, so economy changes. We've seen that a lot lately. Pricing changes, lawsuits in the industry, things like that. So that may change things really fast, and that's why I want to focus on serviceable addressable markets, so SAM. And short detour, I want to kind of use a metaphor from the movies to kind of speak about SAM. So I want to take some SAMs, different SAMs from films to illustrate this. So on this grid, we have serviceable addressable market. So on the right, we have big, and on the left, we have small, and then revenue per user, which is high on the top, low on the bottom, right? So we have Sam from Lord of the Rings. Huge audience for him. Lots of people are loving him. He's suitable for most audiences. We have families, we have hardcore fans, we have science fiction fans, we have book readers, everybody. So basically, that's a huge market, and it's a well-made film, so it's being appreciated by the audiences. So we have lots of users who are flocking in to see it, and then we're able to charge users a lot because they are invested in this movie quite a lot, so they love it. and people are going to be coming back, they're going to be buying merch and things like that. So if you're high SAM and high revenue per user, that's the right place to be. You can do experiments, you can segment users and see how much you're able to charge. Down here we have SAM from Transformers. So lots of users were exposed. It's a big blockbuster movie, but it wasn't really well received. So people are not really able to invest into paying for that movie too much, and the more iterations they made, the worse it got. So the IMDb just got really worse ratings over there. So if it's high SAM and low revenue per user that you can get, you need to really focus on volume, so getting more people in the theaters, paying a lot for like advertising and paid channels in order to get all of that volume. And then down below we have Samuel Jackson from movie The Spirit from 2008, I believe. And I don't blame you if you don't know the movie. I didn't as well, and that's the point. It's low revenue per user because IMDb score was like below 5, and not a lot of people heard about it. So it's very niche and not of the highest quality. So yeah, in this case, we have a situation where we cannot afford to charge users a high price, but also we don't have the volume. And then the last one is Sam from movie Her. I love this movie personally. It received a brilliant critic response. People have basically a cult following about this movie. And yeah, it's not going to become as big as Lord of the Rings because it's a niche story and audience, but it's well made, so people who like it really love it. So we have high revenue per user, but then low SAM. So what to make of it? Thinking of this in these terms, that when you're planning to charge users on your app makes sense because you figure out your context. And whenever you place yourself in one of these boxes, it is easier for you to figure out which way to turn next. So if you are Samuel Jackson, even investing a lot into paid marketing is not maybe going to work out because you will need to pay a lot of money to get that small audience, which may churn in the end. So there are different things that you can do about that. On to examples. So we have a situation which resembles movie Her. So this is high revenue per user, but then low serviceable addressable market. So this is Ulysses. It's an app that is made for professional and aspiring writers. And it's a niche app, right? So you don't have too many people that consider themselves writers, at least compared to the global proportions. It's a niche app, but they're owning it. So they're making all of their features specifically tailored for writers, and they're not trying to branch out into just a general note-taking app. Because if they did, they would start competing with the big boys with the big money, and lots of different other competitors would come in. Instead, they're focusing on their writers to make sure that any writer that starts this specific occupation, they would straight away go to Ulysses. So even though you have low scale, you can still get the users to drive the revenue through charging them more and making the feature specifically tailored to that audience. So going broad is necessarily not the case. And then another case is where we have possibly an option with Samuel Jackson, so low revenue per user and low SAM. We have an app which may be a generic translator, which has lots of competitors in the market. So we have Air Apps One, who developed not only a translator, but 50 other apps. So if you sign up with one, you get subscription access to all of these 50 apps, which means you're hooked in the ecosystem, you're paying one subscription for 50 apps, and that brings the value to the user while hooking that user to that specific app developer. So instead of just trying to become the Her or the Lord of the Rings situation, you can stick to your strength, which is being broad, and that may be a case. So this is about the context. So we spoke about the different situations where you have the different contexts that you need to consider when starting to charge users. Then it's about timing. So we spoke about context. And the question about timing is when to monetize a potential user. Free trial is most often the case where subscriptions begin, and it's a great tool to reduce friction and commitment by asking for a commitment right away. But there are cases where this is not necessarily helpful. So we have a case right here on the screen where we had an app that stopped allowing trials. So the user was supposed to either start paying for the app or not use it. And for this specific app, the situation improved greatly because they reduced the overall amount of users on their app, but the ones that stayed were able to pay a higher price right away. So it cut the revenue to them without any delay, which they're able to invest into other activities. And then they have a better situation with user acquisition. So whenever we're feeding information of users to ad networks, to Meta, we're able to get the best results because we're feeding only the information of users who already converted, they're already paying, versus some users who may convert but churn in a short amount of time. And then the other part about against trials situation is a guarantee. So instead of just giving users a free trial of 7 days, you can ask them to pay with the option to refund within the first month. So we've seen that happen in many situations where it's a high traffic app and it needs to be used every day, so users just end up sticking to it a bit easier. But the point for using free trials is being able to collect information from users. So especially if it's a new app or a new context, or you're just shifting to a new situation with your app, it's really important to be able to collect information from users. So you need to ask them about features they like, features they need to improve, things that you wouldn't be able to ask if it was a hard paywall that users need to start paying the first day. And if your value proposition and your features are not really stable yet, and your best source of insights is just your users, it's just shooting yourself in the foot, asking them for money right away without letting them use the app. So they need to get to the aha moment in order to be able to give you the feedback that you need. So this chart shows Google cancellation reasons from last year. So anytime somebody requests or gets a cancellation going for a subscription within the apps, they fall in these categories. And in order for you to skip reading this, what we have, the majority of this is populated by not enough usage and cost-related cancellation, meaning in both cases users are not seeing the value. So explaining the value and showing the value is super important before you're able to charge for the subscription. Otherwise it leads to this situation where users are churning because they don't have the value or they don't see why they should keep doing it. And then at this point it's really nice to be able to ask feedback and which specific situations they didn't like. And then speaking of trials, they keep growing longer. So that's year prior versus last year. And what's changed mostly is the red part, which means these are the trials which were longer than 4 days. Meaning that users are now exposed to longer trial periods, which kind of speaks to what I mentioned earlier. You need to be able to get the users to learn the features, to educate them, to show them what the app is about before you ask them to actually commit. So longer trials usually signal that users are able to learn about the app and use it a bit more before actually having to pay for it. Okay, more examples. So I love this app really much. I'm an aspiring surfer. I'm rubbish at it, but I still do it. It's a service, Surfline, that's been running for around 40 years, and it's a forecasting app, so it helps surfers figure out waves in the area that they're interested in. So they are able to know whether the wave's going to be like in 1 to 5 days, and then plan a trip or something based on that. So the app is free, in most cases, lots of habituated, loyal users who use it every day. But this app definitely doesn't fall into monetization quickly. So they are using frequency and other metrics to figure out when to show a paywall, and if the user is not using the features already, asking them to pay for more features is not going to really do the trick. So instead, Surfline is really using these free users to learn about the features that they offer, to learn what feedback they're giving, and then improve the product for when they have to ask for money, users will be down to it. So this is a good case for not asking for payment pays off, and I'm going to come back to this app in a bit. Yeah, and then we have not only like longer trials or freemiums, but we also have different types of monetization. So what we have here is types of monetization that apps were using last year. So just to explain, the red part is subscriptions only. But then we see in some industries, we have a mix of subscriptions plus lifetime, meaning one-time purchase of the entire app entitlements. But then we also have the little new bars appearing, so the orange on the top and then blue in the middle. So these are consumable and hybrid monetization. So this is where we have a subscription, but then some users or some features are being monetized through consumable tokens, coins, things like that, and then also one-time subscriptions. So what we're seeing definitely in the market is that apps are combining different payment options, and just sticking to one is probably not going to last you long. And figuring out how to ask a specific user group for payment can be different from what you ask from another user group. So that's definitely a takeaway here. Quick one about pricing. Don't want to focus on this chart too much. What this chart says is that the most expensive apps got even more expensive. So year over year, apps that are doing the best and they're charging users the most got even more expensive. And the rest is actually pretty flat year over year. And this is where my previous statement about hybrid monetization really stands out. This is Garmin. If you're using Garmin, if you're into sports, you're tracking your performance and your heartbeats. This is the app that comes in as a companion to the physical device, to a watch or any other tracker. And there's lots of free users, so users who are not paying a dime for it because they've already paid for the device. But then Garmin have figured out that there are certain users who are looking for specific features. So for example, customizing your watch face or changing certain settings on the analytics. They're able to charge those specific features based on a one-time purchase, so that the rest of the users who don't use the app as, let's say, power users, they would still stick around and use the products, but then somebody else who is looking for an advanced treatment, they would be able to pay for those as a one-time purchase. And then on top of that, they have superpower users who are into running triathlons and Ironman and all of that. Those people are interested in advanced analytics. They're looking for specific information within their device. So those users are being charged with subscriptions. So we have 3 tiers here. Completely free, then we have one-time purchases for the free users, and then we have the complete subscription with the pro features, let's say. So segmentation is super important, and we're seeing as well, this is a tendency. We've seen this happen with Tinder, Bumble, Duolingo, many of them. So yeah, so that's most about pricing. So we spoke about context, we spoke about realizing where you stand in the market and what your strengths are. We spoke about charging users at the right time and at the right segment. The next thing I want to divert to is monetizing eyes or views. And this is a topic that we don't discuss too frequently, but I come from the ads environment and I'm used to this quite a bit, so I want to expand a bit on that. So even though you're not committed to charging users directly within the app, you can still find ways to monetize this. I want to start with a spoiler alert. Do we have Rick and Morty fans here? Yes. Okay, so the background is Season 4, Episode 2, Old Man in the Seat. We have Gloody, who's an alien, and he wants somebody to develop his app. He comes to the family, and he has to develop an app, and everybody refuses until Jerry, the father in the family, decides to agree. And then they develop an app. The app is Love Finders, with 2 Z's at the end. And the app's purpose is helping people find true love. Actually, the app works through brainwaves and starts taking over humanity, so everybody's starting to fight each other over loved ones, and it gets really hectic and chaotic. But they refuse to take the app down because they don't know how to. Because once they ship the app, there's no way to take it down. Sadly, their technology just doesn't allow it. So once they figure out a way to convince the aliens to take down the app, they need to figure out a way to take it down. And they do it through audience monetization. So they just insert an ad wall, and all of the Earth population decides to just delete the app, and everything comes back to normal. So yeah, this is a kind of perfect example of how many app developers are a bit scared of adding ads, just because the user misconception is that anytime an ad is displayed, it's going to be intrusive, it's rubbish, and I don't want to see it. So you don't want to alienate your users. I want to maybe share some tips and tricks that I found from my work before and now that helps maybe make these ads a bit less intrusive and make them work for users and for you as well. One thing that we definitely found happening lately is that many subscription apps are borrowing from gaming. So many apps are now working with coins and digital currency within their app. And in many cases, in gaming especially, there are rewarded ads. So a user is using their device, they're playing the game, and they need to pass a level and collect a certain amount of coins, then to use those coins to buy skins or something like that. So you can use physical currency just to buy those skins or coins, or you can keep playing the game for like 2 months to acquire all of that amount. Instead, some games are offering users to watch a full video of an advertiser and then get 100 coins. Amazing. So I play the game, I get a pop-up every once in a while, and I watch the ads for 1.5 minutes, and I get 100 coins. That beats me playing the game for 2 months. So this is happening quite often now, not only in gaming, but also in like consumer apps. And I think this is a great situation, especially in cases where we have complicated usage. We need like metered features where you need to make sure that users don't use the app too much, or the features are gated through usage. So think AI apps. We have seen a lot of those appear. Each AI app request costs money to the developers, so they need to make sure that they're limited. And using coins is a good way to manage that. Yeah, and it's a win-win solution to everyone, because the user gets, free coins, and they get to use the app more easily. Then the advertiser gets fully viewable user who's seen their app to the very end, full screen. And then we have the developer who gets paid for it. So, and you get to charge a premium for it because it's a fully viewable app ad. So that's that example. And if you think about consumer apps, you could think about different features that get gated, and you watch an ad and you get that feature unlocked for an hour or so. So that could be one way to approach it. Then the other example is sponsored entitlements. That's what I would call it. So basically, instead of showing users an ad of an advertiser, you can get the advertiser to sponsor unlimited complete pro usage for an hour, sponsored by a specific advertiser. So think about, you have an app, you have pro features, and you want to expose users to those pro features for a while. So you reach out to the local bakery, and you insert their logo and say the local baker is sponsoring your free usage for 1 hour, courtesy of your local baker. Again, win-win solution because the local baker is happy with an engaged audience, and then the developer gets extra happy because they get the user to get exposed to pro features before paying them, but it's not like complete free trial or something like that. So, this is an example from Spotify. They've been using it for a while, but I've seen many apps resort to this as well. It's more high investment than just displaying like a video ad or something, but it gets users more in line with what the app is doing, and it's a bit more organic then. And then it's not necessarily the free users that we can monetize. If you have several pricing tiers, you can also expose users to different features or gated features for displaying ads. But yeah, that's pretty much the same as I mentioned before. And then what I love about Surfline, again, fan of that, they are a SAM from the movie Her, so they have small audience of surfers, but then those surfers are highly invested into their sport. So what they have on their app is the perks section. So if you're a paid user, you get to a perks section where you can get specific deals from surf shops, surf trips, get discounts for wetsuits and things like that. So this is only for pro users. And again, win-win situation where the wetsuit dealership gets a loyal customer right away because they bought it through the specific channel, so that decreases their acquisition costs. And then also the developer gets to display the value of that pro tier just by providing those additional perks. So again, win-win situation, but also quite a good way, especially if you have a really invested audience. So again, I'm coming back to the Riders app, Ulysses, or things like that. That could be also really useful. So yeah, so monetization. See, I'm slightly quick, but want to kind of do a summary a bit. So with monetization, the key things that I want to focus on is highlighting your strengths, so knowing where you're strong and not necessarily focusing on where you want to, like the next competitor who's super big and you want to get in their shoes. Maybe try to figure out a niche or a specific situation where you can outrun the big guys. Don't rush it or rush it with asking to pay. Depending on where you are and what your context is, you may need to get the users to learn the app, learn the features before actually asking to get paid, and then layer it. So I was mentioning about segmentation. So we have different types of users who are on your app. You can charge them differently at different circumstances. And mix it up. So we have different monetization options available, starting from free trials to coins to ads, even to affiliate marketing. So that could be a mix that you can involve in your app basically anytime. And I think the most important thing is test it well. Just dedicating your time to testing different scenarios is super important, because if you're just following what the next guy is doing, you may lose out on something that is revolutionary in your case. So testing is super, super important. And then, I was mentioning the report. If you're interested in seeing the subscription apps report from last year by RevenueCat, feel free to download it here. We also have a lot of content available on the Subclub, which is our podcast. So it's all about the markets and the industry. So if you're planning to charge users for your app or just interested in expanding that, feel free to resort to these or reach out. And I think I have some time, so if you have any questions, that would be great. Yep.
Hey, am I audible to you?
I heard something, but it's quite quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, so I work in Google India on the Gemini mobile app. So the things you talked about, so do they work as it is in India or some other market with a different price, or it is bit deeper? Like say the like showing the trial earlier, later, does it apply as it is to different markets with a different price, or is there any layering in terms of that? Are there any details around that? Do you know about?
Yeah, great question. So you were asking whether there are peculiarities in specific markets about how trials are presented or specific pricing. So yeah, that definitely exists, and we have, more data about specific regions which are on the report, which you will be able to see. But it's mostly it still depends. So you still have within India probably lots of different demographics and users who will resort to different or react to different monetization options. So it's again about testing, and these benchmarks are here just to guide you into inspiring you to see what other apps are doing. But if you want to inherit one of those solutions, I think the best way is just to do A/B test or ABC test and then figure out.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. I feel like this is a smaller group. We could just do a round table.
So I was thinking about a situation where it's high ARPU but low SAM.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't want me to ask the question. So this is a niche group of users. They have willingness to pay for something.
Yeah.
And let's say they're very passionate about something, right? So in that type of a situation, do you think it's possible to use a pay what you want model, knowing that, not knowing, but with the hope that they're going to end up on average paying what you would have charged them anyway, but it kind of gives you a little bit of goodwill with them, knowing that you're giving them the option?
Yeah, great question. I don't have an answer for that. I haven't really dealt much with donation type payments. I would say that again, you may end up losing out on some of the users who are on the edge. So let's say if you would end up charging users $1 per month, which is lower RPU, if you get donations and you get your average payment to be 70 cents, you may lose out on the extra 30 cents that those users might still end up agreeing to pay, but you're not adding those tiers, so you would not know in the end. Again, testing, but not sure.
Do you have any success cases of any companies using that or apps?
I don't think so. I haven't heard it much, and as mentioned, we work with lots of apps.
Yeah.
Most of them are subscription-based with fixed product price. So in many cases, the app stores don't really allow pay as you imagine. So there's usually a fixed price that they need to rely on.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little challenging one since we were talking trials and subscriptions. So what about with trials and term lengths, where if someone's offered a trial and a monthly rate, or is not offered a trial at a substantially reduced 6-month or annual rate?
Yeah.
And then to top that off, what if there are multiple tiers that are available within there, such as an ad supported for a video app or a premium?
Yeah. So your question is, what's better, or?
I really to get your thoughts on that, because I don't think you really covered it too much as far as the trial scale.
Yeah, definitely a great case for diversification. So I would say this is where showing those different options to different segments of users really makes sense, because if you just provide all of your users with the 4 options or 3 options that you mentioned, it gets a bit overwhelming and they'd never know. Sometimes users just need guidance give me A or B. So that's probably my answer. But yeah, we don't really see too much in terms of one versus another, because most apps, when they develop their features, they test it at one point and they decide whether they're planning to stick with one or the other. And that's what we've seen. It's mainly either trial or no trial, and then pricing comes next.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I guess that's all of the questions. Thanks for that. Thanks for sticking around. Survive the heat. Thanks.